Hello and thank you for joining us. I'm Wilson Stribling. Welcome to another edition of At Issue, where we discuss and debate the issues facing the state of Mississippi and how these issues impact you. There are lots of developments to talk about from week 12 of the legislative session. We start with a historic announcement outside the Capitol. Governor Phil Bryant has appointed State Agriculture and Commerce Commissioner Cindy Hyde-Smith to serve as an interim replacement for retiring U.S. Senator Thad Cochran. Cochran will leave office on April 1st, and Hyde-Smith will be the first woman to represent Mississippi in Congress. The governor made the announcement in Hyde-Smith's hometown of Brookhaven on Wednesday. Governor Bryant says he chose her for her intellect, compassion, toughness, and determination to get things done. She served as a state senator for 12 years before being elected State Agriculture and Commerce Commissioner. We hear now from her and from the governor.
I would tell you she has the intestinal fortitude of that can make things happen, that can stand and make difficult decisions, that can overcome the challenges of the day. She is a conservative Republican elected twice to statewide office. She has served with honesty, distinction, and determination as Mississippi's Agriculture and Commerce Commissioner. But more importantly, she's a good Christian. She's a wonderful wife to Michael and mother to Anna Michael. I know the soul of this woman. I have seen her. I understand the honesty and integrity that she exhibits. Now, I can assure you there are many that could have filled this position in the United States Senate. They could not have replaced the great Thad Cochran, but they could do the job. We are fortunate to have so many men and women in this state, but it fell upon me to make the decision as governor. This decision is mine and mine alone. But after it has been made, we need all Mississippians to stand with us if we are to be victorious.
Governor, I am humbled by the trust and confidence that your announcement today places in me, because I know you considered a lot of very, very good people, and I pledge to you to serve all of our citizens with dignity, honor, and respect.
Yeah.
I'm also equally appreciative of the responsibility that I have now to the people of Mississippi to represent our state, our values in the United States Senate. I also want to thank Senator Thad Cochran, an icon in my eyes in the world of politics, stands head and shoulders than has represented Mississippi so well. I want to thank him for his leadership, his dedication, and the service to our state. I look forward to serving in the United States Senate with Senator Roger Wicker and members of the delegation from the U.S. House of Representatives working together as a delegation. You know, I know you can get many things done in Washington, D.C. for Mississippi, and I look forward to working side by side with them to truly make our state a better place.
State Senator Chris McDaniel, who announced last week that he plans to run in November's special election to serve the remainder of Cochran's term, had this to say, quote, "Before Commissioner Hyde-Smith was elected to lead the Department of Agriculture, her only legislative experience was that of a Democrat. She ran as a Democrat, she served as a Democrat, she voted like a Democrat. Although her reputation in Jackson was that of a moderate Democrat, the last thing the state of Mississippi needs in Washington is another moderate Democrat," end quote. McDaniel nearly defeated Cochran in the Republican primary back in 2014. He's also sending a letter to President Trump urging him not to endorse Hyde-Smith. According to published reports, the president does not plan to endorse either Republican candidate, Hyde-Smith or McDaniel, at this time. The only Democrat who has announced intentions to run for Cochran's Senate seat is Mike Espy, a former congressman who served as U.S. Agriculture Secretary under President Bill Clinton. He says, quote, "I note the governor's appointment of Commissioner Cindy Hyde-Smith to be the interim U.S. Senator and look forward, as the campaigns progress, to discussing the issues facing production agriculture, global farm trade, and the many other issues that touch and concern all of our people and which inhibit them from earning better livings and having more fulfilling lives, end quote. We'll talk more about the U.S. Senate race with Brandon and Austin in just a moment. But now back to the Mississippi Capitol. The state's new law restricting abortions after 15 weeks gestation is on hold after federal Judge Carlton Reeves issued a temporary restraining order. Governor Bryant signed House Bill 1510 into law on Monday. Mississippi's only abortion clinic, located in Jackson, quickly filed a federal lawsuit against the state, arguing the new law is unconstitutional. We spoke with Republican House Speaker Philip Gunn about the temporary injunction.
Clearly, they're disappointed in that. Our intent with that bill is to protect the unborn. We have been long champions for the sanctity of life and trying to protect the unborn, and that's what this bill is designed to do, and we'll see where it goes, I guess, from here. Clearly, we want to see the bill implemented because we think it helps protect life.
Opponents say the new abortion law is unnecessary and that litigation will cost the state money. We spoke with two Democrats about it, Representative Sonia Williams Barnes of Gulfport, who is the leader of the Mississippi Legislative Black Caucus, and Representative Robert Johnson of Natchez.
Our law is not consistent with the Supreme Court cases that have been heard and filed, and so it's contrary to everything that we're doing everywhere else in the country. Not everywhere in the country, but it's the strictest law, and I don't think it'll pass federal court muster. I just think in a state that has the multitude and level of health issues that we have in this state, especially as it pertains to women, that we should not be doing anything to restrict women's freedom to choose their health care and how they will administer their bodies. And so I just think we went too far.
This is going to cost our state a lot of money. There are going to be organizations that are going to come against our state for this piece of legislation, and it's a waste of tax dollars. It really is. It's a waste of tax dollars. I think it's just leadership's way of saying that they're going to do what they want to do on the backs of women and for the sake of women, when it's truly not about the woman. A woman has control of her own body and should be able to make her own decisions about what is done with her body. If it's truly about health care, then make sure that you are taking care of the health of the woman and not just doing it for political reasons.
The temporary restraining order on the abortion law will be in effect for 10 days from Tuesday to give Judge Reeves time to consider the arguments on both sides. A bill that would have allowed teachers to carry guns in school to protect students has died. House Bill 1083 was amended by the Senate to include that provision. The House Judiciary B chairman, Republican Representative Andy Gibson of Braxton, says he let the bill die because of language that was added by the Senate prohibiting people from carrying firearms at school sporting events. The state's community colleges say they need more money. Students and administrators from community colleges across the state rallied on the steps of the Capitol on Tuesday. They say community and junior colleges are the most responsive to train a changing workforce. Andrea Mayfield, the executive director of the Mississippi Community College Board, says they need the funding support from the legislature to help prepare future workers.
We're here to fight for the funds and the needs that all of us seek to provide for the students, to provide for our communities, and to provide for the community and junior colleges. And why do we do that? We do that because we care about the future of Mississippi. We care about the future of the people who live here each and every day. As you know, faculty have not had a raise in over 9 years. That's a long time, folks. That's a long time. Yet our faculty remain committed. They are committed to the students that they serve. They are committed to the education and training that they provide each and every day. I want to thank our legislators specifically because we know that they understand the great work that we do. They understand the community and junior colleges and the role that they provide to the state of Mississippi in terms of preparing and shaping our workforce, our state's economy, and the future of our people. We also know that we need to inspire people to understand our need for equitable funding so that we continue the good work that we do, Otherwise, we can't do that.
The state's 15 community and junior colleges educate more than 75,000 students each year. Another rally on the Capitol steps, this one by supporters of Head Start education. Head Start workers from across the state were at the Capitol to celebrate the success of the early childhood education program. The group also wanted to thank Senator Thad Cochran for his years of support for Head Start. We spoke with the president of the Mississippi Head Start Association, Eloise McClinton, about the importance of getting kids in school at an early age and about Senator Cochran.
Our children come in at a low expectation of what they're doing, but once they are in Head Start and they start learning the different languages and different aspects of educational status, they're making marked gains of moving upward. They may come in low, but when they leave Head Start, you can know that they are doing a great job and ready for kindergarten. We are so grateful for Senator Cochran. He has been a stern supporter of Head Start since he's been in office, and I know that he's retiring, but we want to say thanks, Senator Cochran, for all you've done throughout the years, supporting Head Start, giving appropriation for Head Start, and we want you to know that we love you.
Head Start was established in 1965. It provides educational readiness and health services to children ages 3 to 5 from low-income families. Let's get straight to the point now with views from both sides of the aisle. Brandon Jones is a Democrat. He's an attorney with the Beria Jones law firm and a former member of the House. Austin Barber is a Republican national strategist. He's the founding partner of the Clearwater Group. Austin, Brandon, good to have both of you with us as always.
Thank you, dear.
Let's start, Brandon, with the failure of the abortion law. Do you agree that this law was unnecessary in the first place?
I do. I think Representative Johnson and Representative Williams-Barnes said it quite well. This is a waste. It's a little bit of theater. You know, we talked about this last week, and my concern was that we were passing the most restrictive language in the country. We knew on its face it was going to cross the Constitution, and so we had a very good indication of how the federal courts would respond, and they are now responding in kind. And what this means, and why we call it a waste, is because now the state has to spend money to defend this bill in the courts. And I think we find ourselves doing this type of thing a lot in Mississippi. We pass these things kind of to thumb our nose at the federal government or to make some type of political stand, knowing that it has very little chance of becoming anything, and that's what's problematic about it.
You know, I'm obviously very pro-life, and I'm proud of the leadership at the legislature for making Mississippi the most difficult place in the country to get an abortion, and I'm not going to apologize for that. And I just disagree with Brandon on this, but I do it very respectfully. And I don't think there's a waste of taxpayer dollars. It's funny to hear some of the Democrat legislative leaders say they're worried about wasted taxpayer dollars. I don't think it is, and I hope this bill will permanently become law, and obviously it's got to go through the court system before that happens.
Do you think we'll hear more about this in the future, that it will come up again?
Sure, we'll see. Well, obviously, we'll have to see what the court system does, and if the court system rules that it's unconstitutional, I'm sure the legislature will take a look at it next year and try to get it right, if the court system says that it is wrong this year.
The kind of cynical gift that keeps on giving aspect of all this is we absolutely will hear about it again. If this passes, the next year it'll be 14 weeks. Then it'll be 13 or 16, 17. So we'll continue to pick numbers so long as there's a way to get a test vote on this issue, because Republicans believe it's a very good wedge issue for them at the ballot box.
Well, the governor's on the record saying he would like it to be impossible to get an abortion in Mississippi. Let's move on to the Senate race, specifically the race for the seat being vacated by the retiring Thad Cochran, and the governor's announcement and his pick of Cindy Hyde-Smith. Austin, why did Governor Bryant pick her?
That's a good question, and I mean, obviously only the governor ultimately knows why he chose her. But I think if I look at it from a political analysis point of view, Brandon, I would say that with Cindy, you have someone who can reach rural voters. Obviously, you have a female, which will be historic for the state of Mississippi. It is historic. I mean, I guess it's not historic until she actually gets sworn in by the vice president. I assume that will happen either April 1st or April 2nd. But it's a historical feat, historical measure, and that's a great thing. But you see someone who's very authentic. You see someone who has never has never had to run in a race like this. But there's something that Cindy Hyde-Smith showed to the governor that proved to him that she can handle the type of race that she's about to get into. This will absolutely be the toughest campaign she's ever had. Chris McDaniel and his supporters are fervently in favor of seeing him win the U.S. Senate race, and they're going to run hard. They're going to be aggressive. They're going to support him like they know how to do, and it's going to be a very tough race. But she has shown something to Phil Bryant to say, I can handle this. I can fight. I can win this race. Certainly they feel like she can go to Washington, she can be a good leader, she can represent Mississippi, she'll make all the right kind of votes. But he sees something in her that says, this lady is a fighter. No question, she's got agriculture roots, she can talk to rural voters, but there's something else that I look forward to watching, particularly over the next month, to see what comes out in her to prove to people, I'm up for this challenge. And obviously the governor knows it, and I'm looking forward to seeing it myself because it's obviously in her.
Well, Chris McDaniel was quick to point out her past as a Democrat when she switched parties while she was in the state legislature. How much is that going to hurt her in her battle against him in particular?
Well, it'll be an issue, and there's no question that that's what the McDaniel campaign was going to do. She was a lifelong Democrat until she switched parties in 2010, and then she ran for ag commissioner. But I think the pushback there is a lot of Mississippians were Democrats for most of their life, and then decided, you know what, this is not the party for me. I'm more conservative than how I view the Democrat Party at a national level, and I'm going to either run for office as a Republican or I'm going to vote for Republicans. So I think they want to make that a wedge issue, but I'm not so sure it's going to be as big an issue or not. But that's yet to be proven. But I'm not surprised at all to see McDaniel's campaign do that.
And Brandon, how are Democrats watching all of this over on the other side?
We're glad to have Mike Espy in this race, and we think he's going to be a formidable candidate and somebody who I think, as Republicans take shots at each other and talk about who's taken the most pictures with Donald Trump and who's the most conservative of all the conservatives in the land, Mike Espy will look increasingly like the adult option in this race and has a chance to do well in November. I will say this, though. Commissioner Smith is as capable and competent as any of our statewide elected officials. And so one thing that is refreshing about the governor's appointment is that he did go with a female. We have had a blind spot about that in the state. We haven't always looked to elevate female leadership in this state. And so I think I would be remiss if I didn't say that that is meaningful and it is historic. And I actually came on this program in one of its earlier manifestations whenever Cindy Hyde-Smith and I were both in the legislature. And she's always carried herself in a respectful way. She's always managed to weigh in on issues in a way that was thoughtful. And so there's a lot about her, I think, that is attractive. But unfortunately, not only did she switch parties, but now she's veering very hard into almost wholesale adoption of this current Washington administration. And I'm sorry, but Mississippi has had enough of this, whether you're male or female. And so the idea that we would send up a rubber stamp for this president, whether in the form of Chris McDaniel or Cindy Hyde-Smith, I think is unacceptable, and I think we've already seen what exactly that means for a state like Mississippi. So although I think it's a respectful choice, I'm glad to see a female in this position, and I hope we see more in the future. I think Mike Espy is the better alternative come November.
You know, and I know we're going to talk about Thad Cochran here in a few moments, but let's talk about what you just said. One is, this cannot be a campaign, and you got to hear me for a second here. This cannot be a campaign that is who is the closest to Donald Trump. Donald Trump is intimately popular with Republican primary voters in Mississippi. You can go look at the polling data. I mean, big numbers, very supportive. But the president is such a unique individual, such a unique personality. That is, his personality and his popularity is not 100% transferable to someone who's for him. We've seen it in Alabama with Luther Strange. We just saw it in the Pennsylvania 18 congressional district race. We've seen it in others. Republican voters really like Donald Trump. But just because you go say, I'm the most for Donald Trump, doesn't mean you're going to win. That's an important variable in your campaign. But you've got to go out there and you've got to tell voters, this is what I'm going to do. This is who I am. She's got to go tell people who she is. Voters pretty much know who Chris is. Chris has got to go, he's got to go wide in his base. She's got to go tell people, here's who I am. This is what I've done. This is what I will do for Mississippi. It can't just be, I'm the one who's going to be endorsed by the president, or I'm the one who's going to be the most for the president. And I will say one 10-second thing. She is a very nice lady. She's a very sharp lady. She's very well liked. She just got to spend the next 3 or 4 weeks explaining to Republican voters, this is why I can win and this is why I can handle this race.
You know, you bring up a really strange situation. Rarely would you have a situation where a statewide elected official has less name ID than this upstart state senator who's running for office. Of course, she has time to narrow that
it's
gap.
Because of the 2014 race, but why his name ID so high.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, she'll have time to narrow that because she'll be able to serve in this capacity for a while. And then obviously this is going to make news. Now Vermont is the only state in the United States that will not have had a female to serve in Congress. So this is, you know, it's just significant. 49, not bad. But nonetheless, that's unique. You would rarely have a situation where the challenger had more name recognition and perhaps a bigger presence.
Well, you mentioned the president. What should we make of these reports that the president is declining to endorse either McDaniel or Hyde-Smith in this race?
I think when it's all said and done, that I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to try to guess what the White House is going to do. That would be a mistake for me because you just don't know.
He was quick to support Senator Wicker when McDaniel was running against
Roger Wicker has had a proven track record in Washington, D.C. I mean, Cindy Hyde-Smith is not Roger Wicker. Nothing against her, but I mean, it's a different situation. He just got through chairing the National Republican Senatorial Committee, which gave the Republicans the majority, which gave the president the majority in the Senate. But to answer your question, I think they're going to be like a lot of people. Watch her for 2 or 3 or 4 weeks and see how she performs. The first 4 weeks of this campaign for Cindy Hyde-Smith are equally as important as the last 4 weeks. She's got a lot of hurdles to overcome. She did a great job overcoming hurdle number 1 at the depot that they were at, the place they were at, the venue in Brookhaven, because she gave a first really good speech. So I'm sure the White House is going to watch her for 3 or 4 weeks, and then they'll make that decision. But I'm sure they'll come in and support her and endorse her at the end.
We've never had a president as sensitive to the horse race of politics as President Donald Trump. I mean, we know that he is a cable news channel addict. He cares deeply about not putting his name on something that loses. Yeah. Pennsylvania 18 hit him hard. Alabama was frustrating to him. He's been very open about that. And so I think he is very wary of being banned again in a Republican primary. He does not want to pick the wrong Republican horse for reasons that are all his own.
And no president ever does.
Yeah.
You said that you're glad to have Mike Espy running as a Democrat. Would it not behoove the party then to dissuade anybody else from getting into that race?
You've correctly identified the very toughest political challenge of the year for a party that struggles to meet this challenge. You know, I've said on this show many, many times that one of the things that we must get better at as a party, if we truly want to be competitive, better organization, better infrastructure, better just internal communication. And that would all have to be at its best in order to keep other candidates out.
Yeah, it's very difficult. And listen, and I would say for Republicans who are thinking about trying to get in this race, and you know, I know a little bit about campaigns. Unless you've got $3 or $4 million that you're willing to spend of your own money, you are wasting your time. Whether you consider yourself somebody on the far right, the middle, or the moderate side of the Republican spectrum, if you get into this race and you don't have that kind of cash support and you're not from a big populous area, you're not going to win.
Let's say that we do end up with a race between Espy and, say, McDaniel. Who are Republicans largely going to support in that kind of race?
I think they'd be for Chris McDaniel.
So you don't think that Mike Espy could convert any Republicans who don't support Chris McDaniel?
You just have to sort of see what kind of campaign that Senator McDaniel runs. There were a lot of Republicans, obviously, who were frustrated with him at the end of the Cochran race because they just wouldn't admit defeat. They felt very strongly that they didn't lose for whatever reasons. Obviously, the court system felt different, and the voters felt different. We'll have to watch this race and see. But I think at the end of the day, when you get into a 3-week primary, it's all about Republicans and Democrats, and I think that Republican voters would, even if they are, mad at Chris McDaniel, or even if Cindy Hyde-Smith, let's say Cindy Hyde-Smith is a nominee, you'll have a lot of frustrated Chris McDaniel supporters. I think they ultimately would say, well, I got to go vote for the Republican.
We have less than 2 minutes left, and that's not enough time to properly reflect on his legacy. But let's spend a little bit of time talking about Thad Cochran. A lot of Democrats have even said, we heard in this program from the lady with Head Start, that they appreciate his leadership over the years.
How great is that to see a celebration at the Capitol that's actually in favor of something positive and singing the praises of someone who has been an exceptional statesman for this state? I think that, at least for me, even though I come here and I speak from a Democratic perspective, what I want desperately out of all of my elected officials is for them to somehow rise above the fray and to do positive things for our state that we all love. Senator Cochran rose to that occasion more than once, and it would just be foolish of me as a Democrat not to acknowledge his great contribution to this state. And so it's tough to see us lose him, and as I've said before, we're losing a lot of reasonable people at that place, and that's a big shoes to fill.
I'm so glad that I got to spend a lot of time around Senator Cochran in 2014 during the election. I wish I could have spent more time around him, earlier in his life. But one of the things that I've always known about this man, and certainly picked up spending time with him, is he cared about all Mississippians. I mean, he is and was no partisan elected official. Whether you were black, white, young, old, from Jackson or from Jasper County, he wanted to make sure that he was doing everything that he could, and he will so deeply be missed by all Mississippians.
Will be remembered for a long time. Thank you both for being with us on At Issue. We thank you for joining us. We're out of time. You can watch this program online on our website, mpbonline.org/issue, and we'll be back next week with another edition of At Issue.